equipment. The Obama administration's defending the U.S. military's record in the Iraq War after coming under worldwide condemnation following the release of leaked secret documents that paint a graphic picture of the U.S. occupation. The whistleblower group WikiLeaks released close to 400,000 classified U.S. war logs over the weekend, comprising the largest intelligence leak in U.S. history. The disclosure provides a trove of new evidence on the violence, torture, and suffering that's befallen Iraq since the 2003 U.S. invasion. Despite U.S. claims to the contrary, the war logs show the Pentagon kept tallies of civilian deaths in Iraq. The documents also show the U.S. imposed a formal policy to ignore human rights abuses committed by the Iraqi military. Under an order known as Frago 242, issued in June 2004, coalition troops were barred from investigating any violations committed by Iraqi troops against other Iraqis. Hundreds of cases of killings, torture, and rape at the hands of the Iraqi troops were ignored. State Department spokesperson Philip Crowley rejected the accusations, saying the United States trained Iraqi security forces in human rights. Crowley said, quote, "Our troops were obligated to report abuses to appropriate authorities and to follow up, and they did so in Iraq. If there needs to be an accounting, first and foremost, there needs to be an accounting by the Iraqi government itself." Meanwhile, General George Casey, who headed U.S. forces in Iraq during 2004 to 2007, also denied that the United States turned a blind eye to prisoner abuse. But the war logs have sparked worldwide concern and condemnation. In Britain, Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg said the allegations were, quote, "extremely serious and should be properly examined." The Gulf Cooperation Council, which comprises 6 U.S. allied Arab countries, urged Washington to open a serious and transparent investigation into possible crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, the United Nations chief investigator on torture, Manfred Nauert, has called on the Obama administration to order a full investigation of the role of U.S. forces in human rights abuses in Iraq. And Human Rights Watch said the U.S. may have broken international law if it knowingly transferred prisoners to potential places of abuse. The nearly 400,000 documents were provided ahead of time to the New York Times, the Guardian newspaper in London, the French newspaper Le Monde, Al Jazeera, the German magazine Der Spiegel, on an embargoed basis. They're now available online at wikileaks.org. We go now to London, where we're joined by the founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. Julian, welcome to Democracy Now! Talk about the significance of these documents, how you got them, and why you decided to release them.
Hello, Amy. Well, these documents cover the periods of 2004 to the beginning of 2010. It is the most accurate description of a war to have ever been released. Within them, we can see 285,000 casualties. That's added up report by report. That's each casualty, where it happened, when it happened, and who was involved, according to internal U.S. military reporting. Now, looking at particular groups of casualties, we can see, for example, over 600 civilians killed at checkpoint killings, including 30 children, mostly previously unreported, that 3/4 of those killed at checkpoint killings, according to the United States military itself, were civilians. And only 1/4, according to the U.S. military internal reporting, were insurgents. We see 284 reports covering torture or other forms of prisoner abuse by coalition forces, covering 300 different people. We see over 1,000 reports of torture and other prisoner abuse by the Iraqi state itself, many or most of those receiving no meaningful investigation. I heard in your introduction that the Pentagon claims that the Iraqi government is responsible for this, but in international law, it is the person or government or organization that has effective control that is responsible. And certainly before the technical legal handover from the Coalitional Provisional Authority to the Iraqi government, it is clear that the United States and other coalition forces were the effective, legally responsible group for those. We see in the United Kingdom Phil Shiner and his group of public interest lawyers, Amnesty International and in New York Human Rights Watch, calling for investigation and, in some cases, lawsuits against coalition forces for wrongful death. There's other aspects as well. We can see the involvement of Iran in Iraq with various forms of support given to Shia groups. We can see the corruption present in the Maliki government, including what appears to be a special forces Iraqi special forces squad personally responsible to Maliki, not tasked by the Iraqi army itself, that has been going around and strong-arming and possibly assassinating opponents.
And how did you get these documents, and who wrote them?
The documents are what is referred to in military terminology as significant action reports. So those are field reports by the US Army, radioed back to base, of everything those soldiers and commanders considered significant. So that is the launch of an operation, the dropping of a bomb, the arrest or detainment of persons, of which there are approximately 174,000 cases documented in this material. Significant key leadership engagement, so the meetings with some key leaders and the US Army. It is, if you like, what the US Army and the Pentagon use as its raw ingredients to come up with policy and understand how the war was progressing. Clearly this material must have come from someone or some persons within the Pentagon or within the United States military. And it's worth pointing out that there are clearly good people in the Pentagon who are not happy with the progress of the Iraq war, and those people have chosen to provide us with this material and presumably have chosen to provide us with other material that we have released over the years.
We're going to go to break and come back to Julian Assange. He's joining us from London, actually just across the River Thames from MI5 and MI6, where we were broadcasting from a few weeks ago, the British equivalents of the FBI and the CIA. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll be back in a minute.